All right, we are back in Gainesville, and it is chilly for some reason. After sick week, things got a little colder, and we are back in the shop with an update on SoccerMom and our week at sick week. Most of you guys saw this happen.
Here's your leader in stick shift. This is Chad Begley in the Corvette.
And he's racing against Kevin. Wow.
Yeah, that's Kevin Smith. Goes for nothing but Kevin. Hang on to it, Kevin. Hang on. Hang on to it. Still sideways.
Oh, he kept it.
And he's got it saved. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. He saved it through all of that sliding. The other thing you notice, he threw the parachute, which means immediately that'll help center the rear of the car.
And on top of that, both of those guys are going to need new pairs of underwear because Kevin Smith obviously sawing at the wheel and doing his thing, but Chad Begley watched that all happen right out of his side view mirror. Driver out. So driver is out and he's okay. So give him a round of applause for keeping that car off of the wall.
People, put your hands together. Kevin doing an awesome job, and as we said, driver out and he's okay.
And we're gonna go over how to properly wire it up so that the parachute auto deploys. And the ironic thing is I had actually done it right on every other car we've done it in except for SoccerMom. Kind of funny how that works out sometimes, that your own stuff doesn't get all the attention that it deserves compared to everybody else's stuff, but that's life sometimes. Let's get to it. All right, well, while you're here, please subscribe to the channel. We are less than 1,000 away from 300,000 subscribers, and we're gonna do something for the 300,000 subscriber mark. Yeah, I'll get it said eventually. All right, for those of you that don't know, we sell merchandise, KSR merchandise on the website, winwithksr.com, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. And huge thanks to all of you that have supported us in the past with merchandise sales. You know, we've got t-shirts and hats and lanyards and stickers and some hoodies. We're running a little low on hoodies. If you guys want hoodies, let us know so we can decide whether or not we're going to reorder and restock. They've gotten expensive, so it's kind of hard to keep a bunch of expensive merchandise in stock. But winwithksr.com, follow the links to go over to the merchandise stuff, or check out the used parts section, because we do have some used stuff that we've taken off of our cars, customers' cars. You know, it's good stuff. Everything from some ProMod 91mm turbos to some ignition boxes that we've taken off of cars that we've upgraded to Holley fuel injection. And then there's also new stuff. You know, we're dealers for Holley and Motion Raceworks and TRZ Motorsports and AFCO Shocks and a whole bunch of different companies. And we can help you with your projects and get you set up with the parts that you need, instead of you maybe having to figure it out for yourself when, you know, you're wanting to build one of these projects. And we can get you the right parts the first time so you don't end up spending twice. But for the merchandise stuff, we have a new t-shirt that we've just come out with. A few videos ago, I said something about I would race a tricycle to win a popsicle, and it kind of stuck. There were some comments that people would love to see that on a t-shirt. So we had the artwork done up, and this is what it looks like. So if you guys like that and want to get one, we're going to have a 1-week pre-order, as well as post-sick week discount for everything on the KSR merchandise site. And you can get our new t-shirt, as well as anything else that is available on the website. If you do order the new t-shirt, it's going to be, I think, 2 to 3 weeks from when we order it, 2 to 3 weeks from when we close the pre-order. So if you order the new t-shirt plus anything else, it's all gonna ship together once the new shirts come in. Just putting that out there. So a week after you make your order for the new t-shirt, y'all aren't hitting us up, where's my t-shirt? Well, it's not here yet, and we have to get it before we can ship it to you. So let's get on to the rest of the video, and I'm gonna show you how to use your Holley EFI system to automatically fire your parachute, along with some parts from Motion Raceworks, to make it all work together to where you don't have to reach for the parachute handle like I did when I was sliding sideways at 140 miles an hour. first thing you're going to need in your car to do this automatic chute fire is some kind of air system for your shifter, for your parachutes, for your boost control, because you need to tee into that to be able to come over and run some air to a Mac valve. And this is what we're going to be controlling with the Holly. See, it's just a standard old 12-volt Mac valve, and we're going to be wiring both sides of this to the Holly. Now, that's where I messed up on SoccerMom, and there's a couple of different ways to do it, but I'm going to show you guys. Actually, I'm going to show you both ways, because why not? And we're going to wire both of these to the Holly. So these draw such low amps that the Holly can run them directly from one of their outputs. I haven't had any issues yet with wiring that directly to the Holly, both the power and the ground. Mullet is wired that way. The Lawn Dart is wired that way, as well as several other cars that we have set this up on. I just messed it up on SoccerMom. So when I go watch the video, I can see that there is about 2.5 seconds from the initial sideways movement to when I reach for the parachute lever. Now, getting the parachute out is definitely what helped get the car back straight, and thankfully I was able to reach up there and slap it out. But we're going to look at the data again and see if the ECU could have launched it quicker. So right here is our coolant pressure, this pink line here, and we can see that here at, let's see, 3.55 seconds into the run is when the coolant tank ruptures, and this is our y-axis for the G meter, and we're looking for anything over 0.3 plus or minus, and honestly you could really fire it down at even 0.25, but let's just say we were going to use 0.3 like I had it programmed. So right there we're already at 0.41. So it's somewhere between these 2 points. So already by 4.2 seconds, so that is 6.5 tenths of a second, the ECU would have fired the parachute, or at least activated the trigger to fire the parachute. And I don't actually touch the handle until 2.5 seconds after the coolant tank ruptures. So that's 3.5 seconds. 3.5 plus 2.5 would be 6. So out here is where I fire the parachute handle manually, and back here is where the Holly would have fired the parachute had I had it set up right. Now, just to recap, where I messed up is I had both of these qualifiers, positive G and negative G, on the same channel. Should have known better. This was one of the first ones I did like this, honestly, and apparently I figured it out in later cars because, like I said earlier, all the cars we've done after this, I did it right. So how SoccerMom is wired is there is a 12-volt supply to that Mac valve that opens up and fires the air to the chute release air ram, and the Holly was just providing the ground when these were met. Now, obviously, you can't meet positive and negative G on the same axis at the same time. It's impossible. So what I did on Mullet is I split the 12-volt side and the ground side. Now you can see we've got 2 separate chute releases here. We're going to talk about both of those here in just a second. So the 12-volt supply to the air chute launcher Mac valve goes active when boost time is above 2 seconds and the right front wheel speed is above 100. So both those triggers get met and half of the job is completed. So now we go to our safety chute, and now we're at plus or minus 0.6 G. Now, I even messaged Zach after I went back through my earlier tunes and looked at this stuff and told him to go tighten these numbers down just so, you know, Mullet would fire the chute if he were to ever get super sideways. Garrett is obviously an excellent driver as well and would probably get the chute out, but just like we demonstrated in my case, there's that 2-second reaction time between when I got the chute out and when the ECU would have fired the chute. So we might as well see if we can tighten this up and make it a little bit safer. So if you look in here, we've got a single trigger for either one of these. So then if either one of these conditions is met, the ground side is completed and the parachute fires. Now on this chute release function I've got here, this gives him the option of firing the parachute using the right hand steer button. So, which is the same as the trans brake button, which I have set up as multiple functions in both my car, pretty much every car we wire. The buttons on the steering wheel do like 3 or 4 or 5 different things depending on what mode the car is in. So that's an option for him there. And I don't know that he's ever used it, but it is that option that if he is over 100 miles an hour, boost time is over 4 seconds, now the right hand button on the steering wheel will also fire the parachute. So just multiple options to achieve the same thing. All right, so another way to do this is to use an advanced table, and this will make it to where you only need the one output for the the ground side, which will work with your Terminator X. And basically what we're doing is we're going to use a nitrous stage as the parachute launcher. So you have to keep that in your head that now you're looking for the nitrous stage 1 output will be your parachute fire. So a little bit of wordage there that's a little bit different, and you'll also have to enable your the system to be on, which that's an easy one to take care of there. But basically, Dennis Drummond sent this, and he was riding around with Rich and Colby from Canada, and he sent me this after he saw the way I had mine done, and obviously the problems that it had. And this is the way he's used. And I will say that I haven't used it, but looking at it on the computer here, it looks like it should work really good. And it has an extra feature that I'll tell you guys about that I also kind of like. But if you look at this, we've got it to where this is not active until the trans brake is disabled, as well as the wheel speed is over 50 miles an hour. Now you could use boost time, you could use any kind of qualifier that you deem is accurate, or any qualifier that you deem would work for your application. But I like this one. I think it would work great. And you can see on our table here, we've got wheel speed on the left side of the axis, which I believe I've got it set up in SoccerMom's new setup as the right front wheel speed. And then we've got the Y axis of the G meter on the bottom of the screen here. And I played around with these numbers just a little bit. You can see it's negative 0.01 to positive 0.01 right down the center here, these center 2 columns. And then my next columns are 0.0, well, that's actually supposed to be 0.3. Look at me messing up. So we'll change this to 0.3 and then 0.33. So that means once we cross that threshold of 0.3 Gs, either negative on this side of the axis or positive on this side of the axis, and above 129 miles per hour, this would fire the parachute. You can see we've made it to where it's a little bit less sensitive. If you're early track and you make a little move, it's say 0.6 of a G at 100 miles an hour, that's what it would take there. And all the way down here to 50 miles an hour, 1 full G, which is kind of a lot. It probably wouldn't be using that unless you were really, really out of shape. But the idea is you can play with these numbers as you get farther away from the y-axis and going slower. But you have to look at your data, like I showed you earlier in the video, and determine what is a normal y-axis trace for a run in your own car. So, one other feature that I like about this is, let's say you want to make sure that every time the car goes over
197 miles an hour, it fires the parachute. Well, we just change these numbers. Well, let me do this the right way. You change these numbers to 100, and now as it approaches 197 miles an hour, between 186 and 197, it's going to fire the parachute to where it comes out at the end of your run. Now, I will say that you should always plan as a driver to reach up and slap the parachute out as you cross the finish line. Preferably, if you're in a really fast car and you're running quarter mile, you're actually releasing the chute handle about 1,200 to 1,250 feet, so that by the time it comes out behind the car and blossoms, the nose of the car has, just gone past the finish line, and the parachutes deploy within a couple of tenths of a second of you crossing that finish line and stopping the clocks with the front of your car. So, if you've got a car like, let's say, Brett LaSala's, and you're going 225 miles an hour plus out the back door, you might have seen some of his runs where he's kind of got his hands full to where you might want both hands on the steering wheel going through the finish line, and you can either have a steering wheel fire for the automatic function, or you can do it completely separate of what you've got going on with your person, and that the computer will automatically fire it over a certain mile per hour. So it's a nice option to have during sick week. I actually played around with it on SoccerMom, not with this table, but I had a separate function in the more basic input-output menu, and I fired it at 180 miles an hour, and like 2 car lengths past the finish line, the chute blossomed, and it worked really good. So I had that active on every run, but obviously I missed the safety aspect of the y-axis, and thankfully I was able to get the parachute out and keep from wrecking the car into the fence. So let's go back and look at some of the other hard parts, and you guys can hopefully add some of this to your own car. It's a few $100 to add it, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than tearing a car up and having to fix it, because when you run into the wall, things get tore up.
So the second part of the equation is this nifty CO2 or parachute lever handle, and this is a dual chute release. We've got a rod end on both sides of it for the parachute cables. This is for a project we've got here in the shop, and you can see you can buy it with the air ram already attached to it. And here's the link or the website page with the part number for Motion Race Works. You can get it directly from them, or you can get it from us here at KSR. Either way, doesn't matter to us. And if you already have a parachute lever in your car, we also have the parts here at the shop to sell you to adapt, at least for most applications. It's kind of a universal thing, but you'll have to drill a hole in your parachute lever, and then the air ram will push on this that'll be bolted to your lever and push the air ram open, similar to how it's done here. So like I said, we can set you up with the parts. If you've already got it installed in your car, there'll be some tabs that you'll have to weld or clamp to your roll cage, or however you have your parachute thing mounted, your parachute release handle. And then you just have to anchor the other side of it, chassis side, and then the other side over to your lever. All right, well, while I was down at the Freedom Factory playing in some Ford Rangers, Will was ripping the old hot rod apart. Yeah. And we got a little bit of damage to the cylinder head, unfortunately. So I got a little damage to fix here on the cylinder head. And I really think had I been a lot more aggressive with the coolant pressure safety, it wouldn't have done that. Because that's, you can see when it went nuclear on the coolant pressure. But had I had the safety a lot lower, and maybe even just shut the coils off over a certain PSI of coolant pressure, something to really get my attention in the driver's seat so that I bail out of it and maybe save the thing for another day, to where at least it wouldn't have trenched the cylinder head and we just would have had to have put a gasket on it. So a little time with the welder there, and I think we're going to close up maybe this port, close that up, and maybe even close this up a little bit and just put a hole in there, because like I said, it's happened on number 8 and it's happened on number 1, which is the opposite side of the engine, but same chamber in that cylinder head there. So maybe it's got something to do with the amount of material in that spot, and it gets hotter and then gets closer to the melting point and then squirts it into the water passages. You know, in the rush to do all of the things to get ready for sick week, and then the car running so good on low boost, we were kind of in a part of the map that we had never really run in, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. It's just leaning on it kind of hard. We had a tighter torque converter than we had ever run before. Probably should have gone a little easier on the timing numbers down there. And like we were talking about before, we should have retorqued the cylinder heads midweek. There was some other guys there that were racing in another class, and they said every drag and drive, so they have problems with theirs. And on Friday, when they got to Orlando, the first thing they did was pull the valve covers, pull the rocker gear, all that stuff, and retorque their cylinder heads. So that's probably going to be our plan for in the future. And when I talked to Texas Speed at PRI, we were kind of working on putting this engine together. We were going to install hoops and use copper head gaskets, but they didn't get their machinery set up in time. So we may pop this thing and send it over to them and let them, you know, hoop the block and hoop the heads, or hoop the block, or hoop the heads and cut a receiver groove in the block, and then we run copper head gaskets. That's an option. Gonna talk to them about that, see, you know, what we want to do. I think we should be able to keep the thing alive, no problem, at, you know, 30 up to 35 pounds of boost, provided that we're being responsible with, you know, reading spark plugs. And we put a fresh set of spark plugs in the engine. I think it was Sunday, or was it Monday when we made the, was it first pass on Monday? I don't even remember. And see, that's part of the problem. It was Monday. So we did a spark plug read. Number 8 was warm. So I pulled, I think, 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees out of number 8. I could go back and look at the tunes. And it was 2. Okay, so I pulled 2 degrees out of it, and then we never checked them again. Until actually we had a fresh set of plugs in on the run that it hurt itself. And I wonder too if changing the crank sensor changed the timing at all. That's a possibility. The car looked like it was running, like, until it got the head gasket, it was running just like the earlier runs that we had run the rest of the week. Yeah, so we don't know if the changing the crank sensor changed the timing. Should have checked it just to make sure, because sometimes the things you don't know can bite you. And thankfully, SoccerMom's still in one piece, no boo-boos. Actually, I was wondering, I saw in the video, I whacked the, I think that smear right there might be from the cone, because I whacked the cone with the tire, or the timing block. Oh yeah, you can see it on the tire. The fuzz on the tire from the timing marker. But like, there was a reflector in there, and I wasn't sure if it had hit the body or not. But all that looks good. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, when we were looking at some of the data, one of the things that we're going to do differently is to make a smaller expansion tank, because, you know, we've heard a head gasket before and not had any kind of problem. But when this sucker had 48 PSI in it, when it finally ruptured, you think about all this area right here, and there was several, you got a tape measure? I'm curious to actually see the dimensions. And we can do the math on 48 PSI per square inch. And I bet you it was probably 2,000 or 3,000 PSI just on this one panel. We'll do some math here. So basically 5 inches, 5 by 10. Yep. So 5 by 10, and you can tell it ruptured in the middle because that's where the most pressure is. So we will do a smaller expansion tank, and now that the cooling system works so well on the thing, we don't need this huge expansion tank anyway. We had kind of put that on there thinking that we needed to get all the capacity that we could get for street driving the car because we had all those overheating issues at the first sick week. But now we don't need that. Plus, it'll be a little bit lighter, not having that much water. So I'll probably do something that's, not only skinnier, but a lot smaller. Maybe it just holds a quart instead of, I think this holds like a little over a gallon, gallon and a half. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. We're gonna get SoccerMom back up and going again. Maybe we stick the stock block engine back in if Texas Speed wants to hoop these things and get her really tuned up. But appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. See you next time.